Although Arsenal's Real Madrid game has already been analysed a lot, there is one player I think his involvement in this game is going under the radar, and that is Thomas Partey. So now in this video we're going to talk about why his new role has worked for him, especially in these big games, and just how he can contribute to the team before he leaves in the summer. So let's get into it. Now, after the brilliant game yesterday, there was quite frankly a lot of players that I could have gone through. Obviously already going through Declan Rice and Woklzbusiness, I wanted to look at someone that maybe hasn't got the credit I've seen on social media that I do think is ultimately deserved, and that is Partey. Now, I have been someone that's been very critical of Partey this season. I think there's definitely in times he's been brilliant. I also think in times there's been clear mistakes by him, and it was someone that kind of had the idea that he hasn't really got acclimatized to the limits of his body this season. Now, despite saying that, I will say Partey has been excellent, especially in them big games. I think about the Man City game, the Man United game, and now this game as well is really where he steps up, and he is really good at being an effective player against these elite sides, which mentally is brilliant for the future of this Champions League campaign, but also going into the last games of his season. Now, what we have seen before a lot of the time is Thomas Partey is the guy that picks the ball up in the pocket. He will take a few touches and he'll basically go on a run. This is when he was a real power runner. He's obviously got quite a unique dribbling sense given his size and power, where he can do body feints and quickly go past players in quick shift moves, which is one of the big reasons that he helped Arsenal transition the ball in his early days. Now, it's undeniable that he still has that transitional ability in some aspects, but obviously his pace and his power has drastically gone given his age and the injury problems he has had. But I do think what Arteta has done to make that more effective is quite interesting. So what we saw in this game was Woklzbusiness came into that inverted nature which we've spoken about, and obviously we had Marino, Rice and Odegaard as a front three, kind of more compact, and the two wingers out wide, which I do think helped Thomas Partey. Not only did he have some players in front of him that were quite close within the channel, and he could do them sneaky balls through on the floor through these lines, which we know he's good at. That ultimately wasn't the real thing he was supposed to do in this team. He was willing to have the ball a lot deeper than you would see Partey back in the old days, to give the ball to Woklzbusiness, who is going to be that person that is press resistant, can keep the ball under pressure and be able to sometimes take that pressure and run through teams to get us on that counter. This worked a lot, and even when times where Rodrigo and Modric were getting confused with the press, we were able to pass it around them with Rice running into that space, and this happened a lot very effectively. From Partey's perspective, I think this was a real great change for him, because he wasn't the person that was having to keep making these runs. He could if he needed to and the space was there, but ultimately he was the person that was tasked with making risky small passes within their middle channels, which actually worked really well. I think his pass selection in this game was very good, and there was a lot of times where he would take a few touches of the ball, they would give him time, and he would do them little sneaky passes through to Woklzbusiness in them half channels and in the middle of the park in them pockets, which allowed Woklzbusiness to have that space. He took a player away from Miles a couple of times, which I thought was really good, and although sometimes he maybe still took a couple of touches too much on the ball and would maybe give the ball away, I thought he did recover really well, and it became a real great asset for Arsenal, where Real Madrid did allow Partey to have a lot of touches, and usually when you do that it is going to cost you in some way. He is someone you want to be pressing quite intently, but because he was so deep they just didn't want to, which I thought was very interesting. And to me, one of the biggest examples of that is the build up to our third goal. In this whole build up, it's a brilliant attacking move and a brilliant build up system where we have Raya act as a player that helps the defenders. Saliba puts the ball inside quickly to Partey, and then Partey has that close pass towards him where, because he can't really run into that space anymore, we can pass it off to Timber, who is elevated where he can run into it. But what I like about Partey now is he's become a player that is really patient, I feel like, and he is willing to allow the team to build up in ways where he might come a bit more defensive to get us a better attack in the future. You see here when we've built up the ball, Timber's now into that elevated spot. There is a little bit of a space in front of him where Partey probably back in the day would have ran into and probably could have. But what he does is he goes to and then he stops and decides to come back and actually help the defense. This is where he takes a lot of touches on the ball, and I think he is trying to get Real Madrid to press him intently. He's trying to get Vinny and Mbappe to come towards him so he can put that ball into Woklzbusiness here, but in the end he ends up giving it to Saliba, and then they start to press up where he then moves into the channel in between them. This is very intelligent because he's in between the lines of that midfield and that attack now, and the midfield midfield is so far off it and not really pressing us that he can find them gaps. And then when Raya puts the ball into him, he's able to receive the ball into them channels. And as the midfielder is coming across to basically cover Partey, he's instantly turning and be able to pass the ball straight off to Mourinho, who's also come deeper, who's able to shift it out wide for Rice to run into that channel. It's just a very good way of baiting teams in and then being able to play through them. And I love Partey's slight movements here, which are very unique. I think that not many players can be able to do this in the way that he can, where he can see the danger, he can see the patience that needs to happen, and then he slips the movement into them half channels. And as soon as you have a player close to him, you have Miles here and Mourinho, I think it just gives him better options. Don't make him the one that has to turn and run, make him the one that has to turn and pass it off. And this was not the only time this happened in this game. There's a lot of times in this game where he was picking the ball up just in between them lines when the attack basically pressed without the midfield really pushing up as well, and then times are really off by Real Madrid, I felt like. And then straight away he was able to turn and pass it off to either Mourinho has come deeper, one of the other midfielders, or Miles, and Miles could be that guy that really sustains them pressure and takes the ball. And on the ball, I felt like his passing as well was really good. I mean, it's not really a surprise when you give him enough time on it and he's just getting closer and edging closer to that box. He is going to be able to shift the ball out well wide. It's one of the best things he is good at, is getting that ball out to that right hand side in between players and being able to shift that ball to Odegaard. And it's something that really became successful for us, where we were quickly able to pass that ball out. I felt like his releases in this game were even quick, or when they weren't quick, he had an idea of trying to give that ball into someone closer to him or getting the team up pitch. And he didn't really get flustered by the occasion, which we have seen Partey get flustered a bit of times. But obviously he was really good in this game against a team he has played before. However, to me, the biggest thing about Partey in this game was the defensive nature. If you look at his heat map, he was everywhere. Of course, not just a defensive player. You see him pick the ball up quite a lot, elevated positions, especially when Arsenal are supposed to pen teams in, and we did it quite a bit against Real Madrid in this game where they could not get out, and when you can get Partey up the field the most, it is important. But I just felt like his running in this game, yet again, it's not really been that much of a surprise because he has showed it in big games where he is just able to run for days. Now, something with Partey nowadays is that when players get in front of him or are running in goal and he's in behind, he can't really recover. He still isn't the best person that is great at trying to tackle someone in front of them and getting them paces back, which is one of the reasons I think Arsenal are trying to move on from him. But in this game, what I really liked about him is that maybe Real Madrid weren't playing with as quick passing as you would want them to, and there's loads of examples of them not really committing players within the box, which I don't think helped in that way. But there was a few times where they would try to break and it'd be Bellingham or be Vinny, and Partey just did a really good job at getting in front of them and then halting that attack. It's something I've spoken about quite a lot with Partey, is that his main job at the end of the day is just to slow down attacks and transitions against us. Sometimes they are going to get through and he isn't going to get there, that's going to happen, but he needs to basically slow things down so the big recovery players like Martinelli, Saka, Mourinho, Rice can come back and help him. And there was many times that he didn't even need them. He was shifting players out wide and then winning the ball in a clean tackle, and I thought his tackling in this game was brilliant. But there's also moments where he just comes across. I mean, I think then in the second half he makes a poor pass later on, but then he's instantly running behind, getting there and gets a great slide tackle in to win it. That sort of fight, that sort of due diligence to when you make that bad pass, that is going to happen sometimes. Partey's a risky passer, which is kind of what he's supposed to do at the end of the day. You want them to at least recover in great motions and make sure that the other team can't get the ball. He isn't the most physical player anymore. I mean, I think against some teams he still is a very physical big guy, so that's going to cause some problems, but it's all about just being patient and taking your times in your tackles. And I think a brilliant example of that is right at the end of the game when Mbappe runs past 2 or 3 players, and we've seen Partey in these situations before come across and show too much maybe urgency, not enough patience, and just kind of push people on the floor and give away a foul. But here he's very smart, he takes his time, he crushes into Mbappe, but it's shoulder to shoulder, making sure it's not a foul, and he gets a touch on that ball. Brilliant way to stop that attack, a brilliant way to use the power that you do have left to take that potential of it being a penalty out of the Real Madrid system and win the ball back. That is a very experienced challenge in the box, and I do think it was very helpful, and that is the capitulation of his match, I felt like, in this game. And Partey's just a brilliant player sometimes at connecting the dots. Ultimately, he is in there just to pass it through for other players now. He isn't going to be that real runner that you're going to see back in the day, but I do think with Arteta putting Miles next to him, or even a Rice, where they can be the ones that run and really progress, and now we've got both of them, that it kind of works a little bit more. It makes Partey very useful. He's still good from deeper areas at retaining possession and being able to put balls through. He is a very, I would like to say, a very attack-minded player, even though, like we said, he does have that sort of defensive nous in mind, and in many points in this game he was even coming back into the centre-back spot and allowing Miles to have that midfield. But I do think his off-the-ball movements in the last couple of weeks have been incredible, and I do think he's really got the understanding of where to move, when to get our attacks to be a bit more patient. And I do think there's going to be a lot of things about Partey, but in these games he has been phenomenal, and if we're going to go anywhere in this Champions League, Partey has to play in that DM role. I don't think anyone would really be as good as he is right now in there. Now we look at some of his stats. Yet again, it's exactly what you expect from Partey. 61 out of 65 passes. He had 2 shots as well, which obviously had that one in the first half, which was a bit of a poor effort, but he's in them positions. That is something else we want from Partey, being able to get into them for them second ball finishes, which I think he still did really good in this game. But he made 7 passes into the final third, 2 out of 2 accurate long balls, 1 out of 3 successful dribbles, and it's kind of crazy he's going for 3 dribbles now, which is something that we have maybe criticised in the past. But defensively brilliant, 6 recoveries, like we said, getting back and doing that defensive work, being very aware and being quicker than I think a lot of the Real Madrid players were. 4 defensive actions, 1 interception, and 1 out of 3 tackles won, but that doesn't really matter. Ultimately his job is to delay people so they can come in and help, and obviously all stats need to be taken with a pinch of salt anyway. I thought he was excellent on the game, and I have criticised Partey a lot, but I really do appreciate this performance from him especially. Partey is still a big guy as much as he isn't the most mobile player nowadays, and I do think with a Miles next to him, Partey is going to give him them risky passes that allow Miles to excel and get the press to come in and then bait them out. And also Partey is someone that sometimes you just need to tick things along and sometimes make them risky passes to go forward. It's not always going to work, sometimes there's going to be mistakes, but that is his role at the end of the day. Now of course there's going to be loads of chat if Partey should re-sign. I do definitely understand the argument. In my eyes he's on too much money and not necessarily reliable in maybe his role at certain aspects or even fitness wise. I know he has been this year, but obviously hasn't before. And I do think when you sign a 31-year-old to a new contract, it's going to have to be a 2 to 3 year deal. And are you going to give him more money, which is not already what we want to do, because he's already on, I would argue, too much. So it's one of those situations where I think it isn't just going to work out. I don't think he'll want to take a big wage cut on a small deal. I think there'll be teams interested, like Barca have been linked, in Juventus. So I'm sure that he'll be able to get a good career and good team after this as well. And maybe it's time that Arsenal do move away from Partey, because I think our system has been built on people like Partey and Jesus a lot of the time, and they're never really there for a long periods. And I think now with Zubimendi coming in, he's going to get less time anyway. But let me know what you think in the comments overall about Thomas Partey's performance. And if you like this video, please go watch my video yesterday if you haven't, about Miles or Declan Rice. I made 2 about them. But thank you guys, I'll see you in the next one.